Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of insideTauck, our monthly virtual event series designed to both inform and inspire future travel. We tap into our internal tour architects, wonderful partners, and Tauck tour directors from around the world to give you just a small taste of what to expect on tour with Tauck and some great information along the way. We hope these events provide you with an hour's worth of hope, possibility, and positivity as we set out to travel the world once again. My name is Dustin Smith, and I work here on the marketing team at Tauck. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today from wherever you happen to be logging in from. Today, we'll be joined by Luke Jones, the Kenya Tourism Board Director for the U.S. market, as well as Chris Mancini, a longtime Tauck tour director, coming from us live from Tanzania, where he is getting ready to host our first Kenya and Tanzania tour of the season. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. You are all on mute joining us today live on Zoom webinar. If you do have questions, please type them into the chat function, and I will be looking at that throughout. And we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can at the end of the session. I know many of you probably have questions about your upcoming travel and wonder about necessary procedures and tour specifics. We won't be getting into the nitty-gritty of those details today. So please, if you do have those questions, call into our reservations sales team or visit us online at tauck.com/health to view all of the updated entry requirements and tour status. We update that page basically every day. The presentation today will last roughly 1 hour, and it is being recorded, so you have to jump off early or you miss a certain section, you'll be able to catch the recording tomorrow afternoon on our blog page. We're also streaming today live on Facebook, so if you have any technical difficulties with Zoom throughout, please feel free to join us on Tauck's Facebook page. And lastly, we're sharing a bunch of images throughout the way today. You do have an option in the middle of your screen to toggle a bar left and right if you want to make the images bigger, or if you'd like to make the speaker bigger. So please use that if you wish. All right, without any further ado, let's get started. I'm going to turn this over now to Luke to begin the program. So Luke, go ahead.
Asante, Dustin, and Jumbo, everyone. As Dustin said, I'm Luke Jones, the Director for Kenya Tourism Board here in Los Angeles. I am not actually in Kenya. I'm in the US right now, though I have been to Kenya many times. So what we want to do is take you on a bit of an immersion into Kenya and show you why it's such a wonderful and unique destination in the whole wide world. And it's pretty hard for me to do that from Los Angeles. I do have some great photos of my last trip to Kenya. I was actually there last month, escorting a group of wonderful USA travel advisors on 10 days in Kenya. And just what a wonderful, life-changing experience that is. And I hope we'll give you a little taste of that during this presentation. To add a bit more authenticity to this presentation, we have Chris here, Chris Mancini. He's actually in this resort. It looks very beautiful, Chris. It looks like a very luxurious place. He's actually just south of Kenya right now on the Tanzania border. Do you want to give us a bit of an intro of where you are there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm in Arusha, Tanzania, which is essentially the home of the Northern Safari Circuit. It's pretty much the starting point. About 45 minutes from Kilimanjaro International Airport. People will fly in through Kilimanjaro, and then they'll start the Northern Circuit of Tanzania. A lot of people in the tour that I'm about to run. I have about 8 guests from the United States, and we'll start here. We'll go out to Ngorongoro, the conservation area, to go see the crater, and then out to Serengeti for a couple of days, and then we'll head into Kenya. We'll go to Amboseli National Park. We'll head up towards Nanyuki, where Mount Kenya Safari Club, Sweetwaters, and the Ol Pejeta Game Reserve. And then we'll finish in the Masai Mara, an extension of the Serengeti that crosses over the Mara River into Kenya and encompasses that area that is well known for the Great Migration.
Right, and it is nighttime there, so unfortunately you can't show us the beautiful views. You have a few views of different mountains behind you, right? What can you see during daylight?
This place is beautiful. The Grand Malia is brand new, pretty much. They finished it about 1.5 years ago. Timing maybe wasn't so great, but things are starting to pick up now. And when you look from here, if it wasn't dark, but I swear there is a huge volcano there, a stratovolcano called Mount Meru, and it's the 3rd highest peak in Africa behind Mount Kilimanjaro, which is about 45 miles from us to the north, and Mount Kenya, which is up towards Nanyuki, which will go on this tour. So if you take the tour with me and Tauck and some of my wonderful colleagues, get an opportunity to see the 3 highest peaks on the continent.
Wow, what a great location, and a perfect place for a dawn sunrise breakfast, or a sundowner, as we like to do in Africa, drinks. It's just a quintessential thing to do.
They do them on the rooftop here, Luke, so it's
wow.
quite nice.
I wish I was down there right now, mate. Yeah.
I know.
Well, we'll just get. Yes. We'll just do a bit of an intro into Kenya. I know some people on the webinar haven't actually been to Kenya, but are curious about it. A lot of people may have had their first introduction through Hollywood. So the movie Out of Africa is based on the book by Karen Blixen, and won several Academy Awards. And it's just a great romance and a great, I guess, sell job of why go on safari. It's the romance of the explorer days of old. But Karen Blixen herself was a wonderful, unique person. She was in Kenya for a number of years, from 1914 to 1931, and she wrote a book called Out of Africa, on which the movie's based. And she totally fell in love with Kenya. And up here is one of her quotes, which really encapsulates how Kenya gets into your soul. Up in this air, you breathe easily, drawing in the vital assurance and lightness of heart. In the highlands, you woke up in the morning and thought, here I am, where I ought to be. And you do have that feeling, like it does feel like coming home to some degree. It's a strange feeling, isn't it, Chris, when you see a safari and you're out there, it feels familiar, but very strange at the same time, right?
Yeah. And Luke, it's never the same. I've taken hundreds of safaris throughout Africa, from Namibia all the way up to Kenya. And I don't think I've ever had the same experience. All wonderful experiences, but always different, and different reactions from the people that I get to show around this part of the world.
Yeah, exactly. You're sort of with the wildlife, and the wildlife are different every day. That's what Kenya is really about. I mean, Kenya is a very diverse destination, but quintessentially it's known as the home of the original safari. So recreating that explorer days of old, early 20th century, out there camping and exploring and being amongst the wildlife. This is a classic sundowner shot you'll get in the Mara, and a lot of the camps, or in fact every camp will do sundowners, won't they, Chris? It's pretty much a compulsory thing to do.
Yeah, it's traditional. And you get a lot more of that, I think, down in Southern Africa. One of the questions I always get is, what's the difference? What's the difference? And you pointed it out perfectly when you said a classic safari here in East Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania. It is, I would often refer to it as the real McCoy. It is traditional. It's, bumpier roads, but the wildlife is spectacular, numbers like you will not see anywhere else on the planet Earth.
Yeah, I agree. My first trip to I looked through my camera roll on my camera, and the first 150 pictures were pictures of zebra, because that was the first thing I saw going from the landing strip to the camp. And then by the end of the trip, I thought, why was I photographing zebra? There's lions, cheetahs, leopards, rhino.
The cats tend to be the movie stars, right? They're the stars of the show, and we are the paparazzi. But what I do find is that first couple of days of the trip, you get some impala, and they're about, 500 meters away, and you're shooting shots, or some other stuff. And then as you get into the safari, you start to realize that as long as you're quiet, you're not making loud noises, and you're being part of that landscape, you can get pretty close to these animals in a very safe way.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredibly safe, but it feels like it's not safe because there's no bars between you. You see a lion for the first time in your life with no bars between you. It's so exhilarating. Exactly. And just on that note, the circle of life is a term used, the Lion King, etc. It is a real thing. The safari is one of the great travel experiences in the world for a reason. When you go there and you see these ecosystems, they're savage, they're beautiful, and they're balanced all at the same time. And it's really hard to explain what that does to you as an outsider who maybe has lived in cities your whole life, coming into that environment and seeing the perfect balance, and thinking about your own place in the world. And it really is a totally transformational experience. So it's absolutely a must do for anyone who's interested in seeing the world. You've got to tick off a safari on your experience, on your bucket list.
It's life-changing, Luke. You're talking about a land of extremes, right? We don't really define things by seasons here. We call it dry season, which we're in right now, or we'll call it wet season when we go through some of those short rains. around December, January, those long rains that come down around March, April. And these rains and how they stimulate the growth of grasses and other things are really the inspiration for these animals when they go moving and migrating to different areas. It's all about food and water. It's all about survival.
Yeah, exactly. Just a bit of a step back on how to get there to Kenya. I know if you're coming from North America, you have a lot of options. Actually, Kenya Airways is the non-stop flight out of New York, and it's 15 hours non-stop, 14 hours return. And the aircraft is a beautiful Dreamliner. I just did it myself, but there are many ways you can get there through using the Gulf carriers, KLM, and it's so accessible into Nairobi out of North America. And Tauck have their own air department that can help you with that if you need help with booking the actual air to get to your safari destination. And everyone wants a map to see where we are. So this is Kenya, and it is a beautiful big country with a lot of diverse destinations within it, not just a safari. It's got the beaches, it's got the north here. The Tauck tour we are talking about today basically is the golden triangle of Kenya and Tanzania, and it covers, if you go first time to Kenya, or you want to tick off the major attractions, this is the thing to do, right? So on the Kenya side, you have Amboseli, and you have Mount Kenya and the Masai Mara, which they're all different from each other, but they're all essential in your Kenya experience. And then on the Tanzania side, Chris, I'm not familiar with this side of the border. Maybe you could give us a...
Yeah, we start off in Arusha, you know, because it's the starting point, whether you're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, you're taking the Northern Circuit. And from here, there's a couple of stops on the Northern Circuit, but the most consistent would be the Ngorongoro Conservation Area, which is over 3,200 square miles, and that encompasses the Ngorongoro Crater. Ngorongoro Crater is essentially an imploded volcano that is a microcosm of maybe the Serengeti in a much smaller area. It's about 12 miles by 10, but a little over 100 oval miles, not square miles, right? And within it are over 25,000 animals. Wow. The same major players that you'll see out in the Serengeti.
Wow. And part of that is the Great Migration, which Kenya and Tanzania is very, very famous for. It does happen every year. I guess the peak is when it crosses the Mara River in Kenya. It's just started the week before last, right, Chris? They're officially moving across the border.
It's happening. Right? It's happening as we speak, my friend. I'm looking forward to getting up to the north of Serengeti, and then we're going to spend the last part of our trip in the Masai Mara. So we have a really good chance of seeing some crossings. As well as the fact that when we get to the Mara, we're going to balloon. Top 20 things to do in your lifetime. We're going to balloon over the Mara.
And here it is right here. So I don't know if this is taken during the Great Migration, but it's 1.7 million wildebeest move, right? Is that on average a year? And 260,000 zebra? Yeah. So it's not just the wildebeest, obviously, it's all the predators and all the animals in tow that is such a great spectacle. It's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. So again, if you're a genuine traveler wanting to tick off everything in your bucket list, this is definitely something to do. So ballooning, I can't rank everything enough, Chris. I did it with the 10 travel advisors, and here's a shot of YouTube or Facebook we did. So here we got up at dawn as the sun's breaking over the savannah land, and just seeing herds of zebras, and the balloonist actually takes you really low down and takes you incredibly high up. We had a really interesting group of travel advisors. Some of them had been ballooning for the first time, and one was actually terrified of heights. Susan from Susan Travel Services, I think you can see the expression on her face here, hanging on for dear life. And she was absolutely terrified, but enraptured at the same time. And I think when we landed, she would admit it's one of her life-changing experiences that you were talking about. So this is a real treat, guys. It's just a wonderful way to experience Kenya.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's a real early morning because you want to get going earlier before the winds over the plains pick up, right? Because you want this to be a safe experience, which it is. And just like you said, Luke, they oftentimes will be 10 feet off the ground, and then they'll rise up and go, a couple hundred feet off the ground. And the whole idea is manipulating the winds to maximize your amount of time in the sky. And to maximize the viewing that you're able to have. And then, when you come in for your landing, you have a nice little easy landing. And then, You do a champagne toast out in the bush and have breakfast out looking out over all the animals. It's terrible.
I forgot about that part. Yes, I forgot about that part. That was actually I've never had a more well-earned champagne at dawn than that. And it's fascinating. Here's our balloon captain here. Balloonists are a very interesting breed, by the way. They're borderline, they're not crazy, but they're quite eccentric. I had a chat with this guy, and he's an ex-MiG pilot for the Air Force, and now he's a balloon captain. So each of them have got their own great stories, and they're great, very passionate about ballooning. It is quite a unique feeling.
It's the only smooth ride you're ever going to get out there, because otherwise we're bouncing around a little bit.
I was about to say the same thing. It's eerily smooth. You're just floating, and it's very dreamlike. So yeah,
it's incredible.
I hope we haven't put anyone off that. Yes.
I know.
So yeah. So I mean, moving on just to the cultural experience. Everyone thinks about the safaris, but integrated into that is the cultural experience. Now, the Kenyan culture is a very complex one. There's 42 recognized tribes throughout Kenya. And probably the tribe that you're going to have most interaction with is the Maasai people. And they're really integrated into the experience. A lot of your guides, or most of your guides, that we work with, Chris, will be Maasai people. They've got a sixth sense about animals. They know exactly where to spot them. They can see an animal over the horizon before you even, are aware of it yourself.
Yeah, it's the Maasai's proximity to the Northern Circuit and to the Kenyan Circuit is the reason why we recognize them so often, because they have retained their traditional way of life in many ways. As you're looking at that photograph, you're seeing the plaid shuka, which is representative of the Maasai. And they inhabit the areas that are now national parks and conservation areas, and they are part of it. They are benefiting from it. They've been allowed to stay in these areas because they do not hunt wild game. They live symbiotically with the land. And that's why the Kenyan government, as well as the Tanzanian government, historically, years ago, made deals with them to where they could stay in these areas that have been set aside for the wildlife.
Yeah, exactly. And this photo was taken actually at the Serena camp in Amboseli, which you take people to. And I just love the way the sense of humor of the Maasai people is actually really, really disarming. It's a sort of a gentle, understated sense of humor. One of my guides, his name was Duncan, and I would be on the back of the vehicle trying to spot things for him, like I could actually spot animals for him. And I go, Duncan, there's a rhino, and he goes, no, Luke, that's an ALT, animal-like thing, and it's a stick. It's a stick sticking out of the grass. It's not a rhino horn, Luke. Yeah. So
it's funny, on the trip that I'm running right now, it's our Kenya-Tanzania classic safari. One of the wonderful experiences we have is an authentic visit to a Maasai village. When we get to Amboseli, I always say Amboseli's got a lot of wonderful things about it, but the two things that I think are the highlights are our authentic visit to a Maasai village and views of Mount Kilimanjaro, clouds permitting.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have game drives. There are, there's predators there, there's lions there, but the elephants like nowhere else. Per square kilometer, you're talking some of the most elephants in all of Africa.
Right. Yeah, and just before we move on from the Maasai people, I included a picture here from our trip with the travel agents. You might be wondering what's going on the right side here. So we went to the village, and one of the travel agents here in the puffer jacket fell in love with the walking stick that the chief's brother was using, and he wanted to buy it off him. And the chief's brother said, "Well, I'll let go of it for $100 US." And the agent only had $30 on him. So he said, "Look, what I can give you is a Lufthansa amenity kit, those goggles, and a bottle of maple syrup from Canada." And I just saw them haggling and bargaining, and then finally a deal was struck. And it was just wonderful to see that this relationship was being formed through barter, and they're still in touch with each other, via Facebook. So that you can get some really great relationships going there. Now, conservation. Oh, sorry, go ahead, mate.
Sorry, Luke, didn't mean to interrupt you there, but with the Maasai, some of my colleagues have developed a wonderful relationship with one of the Maasai leaders in the Maasai Mara, and we now sponsor a school there. So,
oh yeah, there's actually more. Oh, there's so many opportunities to do that. And once you visit a school, one of the schools in the region, your heart will just open. The school kids run out, and they're so delighted and excited to see you. So yeah, it is a great opportunity to engage and support. And the last thing about just general about Kenya, they're really, obviously the wildlife is their heritage and the future of the country in terms of tourism, responsible tourism. Conservation is such a huge part of what we do as a country. And you'll get to experience this on the Tauck tour at Ol Pejeta Conservancy. You may know a little bit about this. The two surviving Northern White Rhinos in the world are in this conservancy, and they're both female. So the breeding program is quite complicated, involving specialists from all over the world about doing artificial insemination to try and, secure the survival of the species. They're precious to the whole of mankind, and they're just hanging by a thread. And this is one example of many examples that you'll come across when you do the trip with Tauck and come to Kenya.
Yeah, at Ol Pejeta, they have the rhinos that they've bought and re-released and trying to bring back the numbers. Rhino numbers throughout Africa have really dwindled. And I'll give you just a round number, but we're talking about only about 5,000 white rhinos left and about 18 to 20,000 black rhinos left. Now, as you can see in the photograph, they're both gray. The black and white are in reference to the black rhino is really a hooked lip rhino, and he is predominantly a browser. And then the white rhino, or the wide rhino, it was a mispronunciation of the word wide, and it became the white rhino. So the white rhino was the wide-mouthed rhino, predominantly a grazer of grass, and the other rhino became the black rhino. So the wide rhino became the white rhino, and the other rhino became the black rhino, even though they're both gray.
Yeah, that's something I learned when I was there too, that I never understood. And in the shot, the one in the foreground is one of the last two surviving Northern White Rhinos. In the back, it's one of the
Northern Whites is a subspecies of the African white rhino.
Yeah, and in the back, it's a black rhino, which is just keeping her company. But the other white rhino is out of shot here. So why do people come to Kenya? Everyone talks about the big five of Africa, right? Which you want to see. You want to feel like you tick them off. And when you come to Kenya, you've got a huge chance of doing that just because of the diversity and the variety of life, especially if you're going to Amboseli and the Mara in the same trip. Huge probability of that happening. Here's a little lion cub here, which I thought was adorable until I saw him ripping into a Thompson's gazelle and blood flying everywhere. That is a chance of seeing that. So the big five of Africa, of course, for those who want to learn that, the elephant. And the big five originally was from hunting, right, Chris? It was the 5 trophies you want.
Yeah, it was the big game hunters back in the 1800s, early 1900s, in reference to the 5 animals back in the day when you were loading one shell and taking one shot, that if you missed one of those 5 animals, they were the most dangerous ones that would come back at you. So that's how they became the big 5, because a leopard is not that big, but he is dangerous if you miss him and you're out there hunting. So it was the European hunters that named them the big 5.
Yeah, the big 5 trophies. Now they're the big 5 photographic trophies. So if you miss with one shot, you've got another shot. In fact, probably 500,000, judging by the people with their camera gear out in Kenya. And then obviously the lion is the quintessential one of the big 5. The water buffalo here, and the leopard. Now the leopard is a bit tricky to spot sometimes because they're very shy and they hide in long grass, and they're also up in trees. What is your hit rate on leopards, mate, in terms of sightings?
We know their territories. They're difficult to find, but our local guides here in Africa are some of the best on the planet, and they always amaze people with their ability to spot things. It's a trained eye, and it's looking in certain areas because of landscape, what food's available, having water around. These are things that you're always looking for. And with the leopard, they like to be along water, and they like to be in the trees. They're small. A full-size male leopard goes somewhere about 135 pounds. So it's really not that big of a cat, but it is a striker, and it is stealth. He stays hidden until the last possible second, and then he makes his hit. And he can take down an animal larger than himself or herself. For example, I've seen leopards take down impalas which outweigh them by, 100 pounds, and then carry them up a tree.
Wow.
In their mouth. So it's just amazing.
Do you have an experience with a leopard that you want to share with the?
Well, we saw, we were out on a night drive in the Masai Mara where they let you out there at night. We had our spotlight going, and the spotlight broke, right? So we're like, oh no. And then all of a sudden in front of our headlights, we see a leopard kind of coming across. We're like, oh, let's follow that leopard, right? So we start following the leopard, but we're on a limited amount of light because we just have the 2 headlights. And the leopard is looking after a couple of Thompson gazelles, those smaller gazelles with a little black stripe on the side. And he's looking and he's stalking and he's looking. And then he goes, boom. And he runs right down and takes down a Thompson's gazelle. Then out of the darkness came 2 female lions and scared him off his kill and stole the Thompson's gazelle, as if they were like following the vehicle, waiting for him to do the work. And they came over, scared him off, grabbed the food, and then started to go off. In the meantime, the leopard, being kind of a little bit, flustered because these lions knocked him off the kill, goes over and goes to jumps up into a tree, grabs onto the tree, runs up to the top, and plops himself back down and waits for the next gazelle to come around, I guess.
I guess he doesn't want to show down with 2 lions, right?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Yeah, mate. It's one thing I learned about safaris. There's so many opportunists out there in the animal kingdom. Just trying to make the most of the mayhem around them. And obviously, the last one of the big 5 is the rhino, and it's also sometimes hard to encounter because of the scarcity, right, Chris? Of the top 5.
That's for sure. That's for sure. That's one great thing about Ol Pejeta is the reintroduction program they have there. So you have a much better chance of seeing some of the rhinos there. You also have reintroduction programs. They have some in the Mara and also in the Serengeti. So the numbers they keep that kind of a hidden secret, but they seem to be gaining leverage over the years. So let's hope that these reintroduction programs can work.
Yeah, let's hope that. I mean, there's certainly a lot of effort and a lot of thought and getting a lot of international input too, with all the specialists working on this. One thing you don't often hear about is the ugly 5 of Africa, which my guide Duncan taught me all about. And I actually kind of like them. I was quite charmed by some of them. I mean, so the wildebeest, the warthog, the hyena, the vulture, and the marabou stork-hare, which I think is genuinely an ugly bird, but fascinating to look at. And I was quite taken by the hyena. Actually, speaking of opportunists, I just love these guys. This is we were going back to Sweetwater's camp after our game drive, and we came across this hyena den, and the cubs came out and were very curious. The young adolescents and a few cubs came out, and they wandered up to us and started sniffing around, and then proceeded to start eating the mud flaps off our vehicle. And I learned that they absolutely eat everything in sight, and there's nothing they can't consume. Is that right?
Yeah, and they like to steal from other predators.
Right.
like when we're out there searching, we're usually not searching for hyenas. We're searching for some of the big stars, the cats, right? Lions, we have a pretty good chance of spotting lions on almost every safari. Why? Because they live in large pride groups. Pride is a family of lions, and they tend to inhabit areas where watercourses come together, and that becomes their territory. So the larger the pride, maybe the smaller the territory. The smaller the pride, the larger the territory. Now, leopards, on the other hand, they're more difficult to find, but we do tend to, in a week, 10-day, 12-day safari, have an opportunity to find them because we search and we know their territories as well. And sometimes the lion and leopard territory can overlap because everybody wants to be around the water. Why? Because the prey needs to drink, and that makes it easier. Predators are not in the business of exhausting a lot of energy in order to get the reward. So really good chance if you have a week-long safari of seeing lions for sure. Leopard, not maybe as high a percentage, but it happens. I mean, I ran my first 2 safaris 15 years ago and did not see a leopard. I said to the guides, do we really have leopards here? And then my next 3 safaris, I saw a leopard every time.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't see many leopards on my first trip to Kenya, and then the next one, it was all leopards. And every safari is different. So when you get up for your game drive, you just think, well, this is going to be, whatever happens, it's going to be different today.
And then you'll see, like sometimes you get there post-kill, right? You won't see the stalk, you won't see the attack, but you'll see maybe a couple of female lionesses enjoying some meat. And then all of a sudden you'll hear some rustling in the grass. And that's when these guys come out, these hyenas. And they'll come in and they are strategic, right? They'll surround that couple of lions and they'll come in and one will go in and try to get a little bite at it. And then the lion will get up and go after it. And then three more will come out of the high grass and they'll go from another angle and they'll go from another angle. And it's that working together that allows them to survive so well. And they may not be as good a hunter as some of the lions or leopards or cheetahs, but they can be successful. It really depends on the availability of food and water. And when there is other predators in the area, they'll let them do the work. But when there isn't, they can be effective hunters.
Yeah, they certainly are masters at playing the percentage game, these guys. Any opportunity.
It's a good story.
So just some of the regions Tauck will be taking you. Amboseli obviously is one of the most famous areas of Kenya, southern Kenya. It's actually claimed to some of the best views of Kili. This is Kilimanjaro in the Tanzania, across the border in Tanzania. So we're very close to the border here. So when you stay at the camp and do sundowners, if the weather permitting, if the clouds part, you will have a commanding view of Kilimanjaro and just that spectacular shot. Amboseli is a very wide area. Its name basically means salty dust in Swahili, and it's famous for big game and really spectacular scenery. Particularly elephants, right, Chris? Is this and the other big game?
Elephants. There's good number of elephants there, and it's really one of the things they're famous for. There's been movies made about some of the legendary elephants. Echo was one. So there's been movies made about elephants of this park, and some of the researchers in that area are quite famous. So the elephants are big there, but you do have other game there. And you do have some swampy areas, so you get quite a few birds and other animals. And I've seen lion there, you know, the warthogs, giraffes, you get wildebeest, zebra, you get a lot of the big players there.
Yeah, and the variety is great. I mean, what you say about swamps does attract all the birds. There's over 400 different species of birds there for any birders out there, and very colorful and really interesting. And so just a little bit on the lodge here, Amboseli Serena Safari Lodge. Chris, this is part of the itinerary, right? And this is a genuine safari lodge?
This is an old style African safari camp, right? Because we're in Maasai territory. You know, there were some disputes with Maasai overgrazing. That's why in 1974, the government came in and limited the amount of area that the Maasai could use, but they still do live in the area, right? And they did the camp kind of in Maasai style. Maasai are famous for their beading, so you'll see a lot of beading. You see the tablecloths in the restaurant there, like Maasai shukas. And the rooms are shaped like Maasai bomas. Now, they're not made out of mud, but they have that Maasai style, so they're shaped like a Maasai boma. Maasai boma is the homes that the Maasais live in, and they're these circular round huts. So the lodging has been made to look like that, and then the handles on the doors have the Maasai beading, and it's really that style. It's not your, Four Seasons or something like that, but it's a traditional African lodge. And I think every safari needs to include places like Amboseli and like the Serena and Amboseli National Park.
Yeah, look, I agree. And it's, having said it looks like a Kenyan dwelling. Every room has air conditioning, Wi-Fi, running water and hot water showers and all of it. So all of the amenities you expect in a Western style hotel. But it still gives you that vibe and sense of place of where you are. And you look out your window and there's monkeys jumping around on the lawn outside. And
yeah, don't leave your door open.
There's no mistake you're in Africa. So yeah. And then the Central Highlands where we go next, this is Mount Kenya. So this is a real adventurer's paradise. In fact, people climb this as one of the key, if you're a climber, one of the key things you want to do as a mountain climber. It's Africa's second highest mountain, 17,000 feet, and it's the only snow-capped mountain to straddle the equator. Correct? Have you climbed this yet, Chris? You look like the sort of guy who'd be climbing this.
I haven't done Mount Kenya. I've done Mount Meru here in Arusha, and I've done Mount Kilimanjaro. I did them with some friends and my brother. I haven't got to Mount Kenya yet, but there's still time.
There's always still time, mate. So Sweetwater's Serena Camp is where we stay in this area. And I was actually just here last month. And again, it's a genuine safari camp with all the mod cons. I was in the tent right down the end of the camp, I guess, right near the river. And there's a trench sort of dug that keeps the wildlife out, but you can't really see that from your tent. So what you see is the rhinos wandering up, the water buffalo, the zebra. I woke up in the middle of the night, saw a zebra like, 50 feet away from me, playing and frolicking in the middle of the night, chasing off hyenas for some reason. And then I thought, wow, these guys are really close, but they never actually get into the camp because there's a trench, but you don't see a massive, great fence. So you do feel like Robert Redford or Meryl Streep out there. This is the explorer adventure days of old. I did have a near-death experience when I put my feet into my bed and felt the warmth of a hot water bottle covered in fur. I thought a hyena had snuck into my bed, and I did scream, but no one heard me. No, I didn't. It is often, you often get a start because a lot of these camps will put hot water bottles in your bed, and if you've just gone out on safari, seen all these animals, and you climb into bed and you're not prepared, it can be a bit of a shock. How often does it happen with your guys, Chris?
I don't know how many times people have come to breakfast and go, oh my gosh, I climbed into bed, I thought it was an animal. They sneak in those hot water bottles because, we're right on the equator here. So, technically it's winter here. And throughout the Northern Circuit and the Mara, your elevation, you're 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet above sea level. When you're on the rim of the crater, you're almost 8,000 feet above sea level. And that means less humidity, drier, cooler nights. Right now, I'm sitting outside here in Arusha. I'm at about 4,800 feet of elevation, and it's a little chilly. It's about 60 degrees. I've heard people say to me over the years, geez, I thought it was going to be Africa hot. Now, that will apply when you're at sea level on the coast, or if you go further south down into Botswana and Zambia. But along this northern circuit of Tanzania and the southern circuit of Kenya, you're talking about really comfortable temperatures. So it's a nice time of year to enjoy the safari here.
Yeah, very mild. And the hot water bottle is welcome, but it's not necessary. It's not that cold.
Yeah.
And I think the camp staff deliberately put it in a fur lining, just to play a joke on people. So what you're going to get, Sweetwater is obviously close to Ol Pejeta Conservancy, which is a critical part of the itinerary, and you get to visit the Rhino project here. And it's just a wonderful story. I don't know if you've heard of Sudan, which is the last male Northern White Rhino who died in 2018, had to be put down, very, very old and very bad knees. And he just wasn't able to breed anymore. So the only two surviving ones are there, and they're both female. And there's a great project going on there that you can learn a lot about when you get there, and even support if you feel inclined. And then here's me at the sanctuary. Actually, you can chat with one of the black rhinos and give them a feed as well. So, I thought that the rhino was going to charge me, but you can actually, I just reached out and touched his horn because he was so pleasant and happy. So you get really close personal wildlife experiences here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. And there's also a chimpanzee sanctuary here, which I was quite surprised about. And there's a great conservation project in its own rights. And you go visit the sanctuary, and there's a couple of families of chimpanzees that the rangers are taking care of there. Chris, have you taken people there on your last trip?
Yeah, that's part of our trip, is going to I believe it's Jane Goodall Chimpanzee Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And that's part of our trip. And we have local guides that will then take our groups, break them into smaller groups, and then walk them around and give them the whole background on the bringing back these chimpanzees, because in the wild, their numbers are dwindling.
Yeah. And then we have the Masai Mara. So needs no introduction, really. This is probably one of the most famous wildlife parks in Africa, if not the world, right? Chris, just because of the diversity of the wildlife.
Yeah, Serengeti is enormous, right? Compared to the Mara. Serengeti's over, 5,800 square miles. But then when you get into the Mara, you're talking, less than 1,000 square miles. But within that, smaller area, that extension of that ecosystem, is the amazing diversity of animals. Great numbers of lions, prides of lions, elephants, all of your big five are available. And the landscape, if there weren't animals, it would still be a spectacular place to visit just for the beauty of the landscape. That and the fact that, you know, the weather, like I said earlier, is so wonderful. I mean, you're talking about average temperatures between 60 degrees, 65 degrees Fahrenheit at night. And during the day, it gets up into 75, maybe 80 degrees, but very comfortable, low humidity. Really a great time of year from May, June, July, August, September, October, November. And when you get up towards December, it warms up a little bit, but it never gets extremely hot and humid in this part of Africa.
Right. And the accommodation there, I haven't actually stayed at this place, but it looks beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful, and it's not over the top, right? You know, it's not too much, but it's that perfect mix of classic old safari tent and location, and then the food is fabulous. The staff is fantastic. You have Maasai warriors throughout the camp helping out in all different ways, as guides, as security guards, helping with luggage, telling stories, and they also entertain you at the Masai Mara Fairmont Safari Club. They do some Maasai dancing. You get to do some interactive dancing with them as well. So it's really everything Kenya all wrapped into one.
Yeah, and plus, do you have any downtime to hang out in the pool here, Chris, or you got people out on safari the whole time?
No, you have, because the middle of the day, right, when it does get a little bit warmer, and never too warm, but the middle of the day, the animals tend to find places and hide out. And we, as the safari goers, we do the same thing. So we go out early in the morning, we come back late in the morning, then we have a little lunch, a little downtime, and then we go out later in the afternoon and we stay out to the sunset. And then we'll pick a night and we'll go out for a night game drive as well, just to get that little different experience.
Right. Right. So then heading, I think the last day you have is in Nairobi. There's basically a day at leisure or afternoon at leisure. I haven't talked about a lot of the other things you can do in Kenya because we're focusing on the Tauck Classic Tour here, which really is the quintessential Kenya experience. But Nairobi is a fascinating modern city. It really is the capital of East Africa. Culturally very interesting, but it is one of the only capital with a national park in its center. It's closed off on three sides, and the animals can come and go out the other side. In fact, it has been in the past one of the key rhino spotting places, though that has moved in recent years. So even in the city, you can have a great safari experience in Nairobi. Nairobi. So this is the city. It's really, really green. There's just foliage and trees everywhere. Nairobi, the name is derivated from a meaning of cool water from the Nairobi River. So obviously a place where people settled. And it was founded in 1899 by the colonial authorities of the British East Africa. And it replaced Mombasa as capital in 1907. So now is fully the capital of Kenya, which of course is its own independent country now. But you can see sort of remnants of the colonial days and the different phases of the city, which are really, really fascinating. You've only got an afternoon there, I think, on this trip. There's a couple of things really worth doing. This is the hotel you'll be staying at, the Nairobi Serena Hotel. Lovely, big, tropical style hotel with a very big pool. Hang out in the pool a little bit.
And they just redid it. So, I mean, you're talking completely renovated.
Yeah, they've fully renovated, beautiful hotel, all the modern conveniences. And maybe have a dip for half an hour or so to refresh, but definitely get out and see some of the things that Nairobi has to offer. This is a shot of me at the Karen Blixen Museum, which is only about 20 minutes away from the hotel. And this is actually where Karen Blixen lived when she first came to Africa and started the coffee plantation, and it's preserved in its natural state. And a lot of the exterior shots for Out of Africa, the movie, were shot here. So you'll see it in the movie. And you get a guided tour through the whole house and a history of this amazing person and what she achieved in her life and what her contribution to the locals was. She was a great philanthropist, a great entrepreneur, and an artist and a writer, and a fascinating, fascinating life. And you walk through all the rooms and see how they lived there. They go to the kitchen and how they, kept food cool and how they cooked. And it's quite rudimentary how they lived back there. And it really is the rustic explorer days of old. So definitely recommend checking this out. Fascinating history. We now had a couple of questions about conservation. This is the Sheldrick Baby Elephant Orphanage in Nairobi. I'm here with one of our travel advisors. So this was just last month we went, and what an experience. The Sheldrick Conservation Trust, they rescue baby elephants from the wild, who maybe they've been abandoned, maybe they're injured, maybe they've fallen down a well or something, and they bring them here and they rehabilitate them and then release them back into the wild when they're fit and healthy. The love and care they give to elephants is just amazing. Like they have keepers who sleep with the elephants at night just to keep them company because they're babies, and you know, they're obviously missing their herd given that they're herd animals. So I highly recommend you do that. You can even sponsor an elephant. This is a gift that was given to me by the travel advisors that we traveled with. Sponsorship of an elephant. This is baby Rama. And I think it was $200. This elephant here, it was born bow-legged, so was struggling basically to keep up with the herd. And so they've taken the animal on and rehabilitating it and just helping it, you know, start to survive before they release it back out. And so you get the whole story of the elephant. This is just one of the many conservation projects that you can contribute to or get involved in Kenya. This is a cool thing to do as well. Love this, the giraffe sanctuary in Nairobi. Yes. Very easy to get to.
Giraffe Manor, great place.
Yeah, Giraffe Manor. You've probably seen photos of the giraffe with its head coming through the window, eating your Wheat Bix as you're trying to have breakfast.
And you can feed them as well.
You can feed them as well. Look, feed them. Did you do the giraffe kiss, Chris? That's what I want to know.
I personally didn't, but I have a friend, my friend Susan, she has, it actually was in one of our Tauck brochures, was her feeding the giraffe, giving the giraffe kiss with a banana, I think it was, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so the giraffes have these long, slimy purple tongues. They've got beautiful big eyes, and they're just gorgeous creatures. But if you put a pellet or a banana in your mouth or something and go up to it, it will come and suck it off your face with its big purple tongue. And that is a rite of passage for anyone coming to Kenya, and it's called a giraffe kiss. So you must do it. So that basically concludes our presentation. Here's some resources for you, obviously, with Tauck Tours. You can learn more about this safari and the other trips they have. If you just want to learn more about Kenya in general, here's our Magical Kenya website. I hope you believe it is magical now that you've seen some examples of what it's like to be there. If you happen to be a travel advisor listening in, please make sure you complete our Magical Kenya Travel Specialist Program here. It's an education and a deep immersion into the destination. So with that, I think we might have some Q&A, right, Dustin?
Yes, sir. We have a lot of questions. And first of all, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Chris. That was fantastic education and just a brief little virtual tour-ish through Kenya in our tour. But thank you so much for going through that. I'll ask you a bunch of questions. Well, as many as I can get to in the last 10 minutes. But Chris, Luke, whoever wants to take this, there was a ton of guests wondering about just in general the best time of year to visit. And I know you both brushed upon it in the presentation, but in general, what would you say, Chris, is the best time of year to visit based on wildlife sighting, based on great migration? I know that depends on, day to day, but just from your perspective, a seasoned veteran down there.
Well, I mean, I would say the best time of year is the time that you're here, right? Because like I was saying earlier, every safari is different. And what you may see on one safari, you will not see on another. The only time that I wouldn't recommend coming is during the heavy rain season. And that would be that March, April season, because nobody wants to pay to get stuck in the mud, right? But I think, May, right after the rain, is a great time because everything is so lush and green, but then there may be some disadvantages because you have much higher grasses. So it may be more difficult to spot animals and cats from a distance. As things start to get drier, June, July, August, now the grasses start to dry and you have much more of a visual experience from distances, but it's not quite as lush and beautiful from a landscape perspective, but you can see more. And the cats tend to be more active because that migratory herds have moved through certain areas. So you get a much better opportunity to see maybe some kills or something like that, if that's something you're interested in. When it comes to the migration, usually on the circuit, you are in an area that they will migrate through at some point. So depending on the time of year, you ask your agent to book you in a place that's close. And that's why we stay in multiple spots throughout the circuit, throughout Kenya and Tanzania, to give us a better opportunity to see some of those large herds. And now when you're talking about migration, it's a constantly evolving entity, right? So it's not like they tap each other on the shoulder and say, okay, now it's time for all of us wildebeest, 1.75 wildebeest to go. No, you have the breeding herds, and they're the ones who have to seek out those fresh, rich grasses in different sections of the ecosystem. And they're the herds that really constitute the migratory herds. It's the breeding herds, and it's their search for the proper nutrition for the pregnant mothers, and then for the mothers who are dropping the babies when you're talking about the wildebeest and zebra. So pretty much, I would say any time of year outside of the heavy rains in East Africa, which tend to be about March, April.
Great, thank you, Chris. Anything to add there, Luke?
No, absolutely. That was a perfect synopsis. It's a really hard question to answer because, I mean, I've been at many times a year and had a great experience. I mean, I guess February, March is the hottest. And if you're really bothered by temperature, maybe reconsider that. So nothing else to add. I do see a question here. I misspoke. I should have said Cape buffalo in the top 5, not water buffalo. Apologies for that. And thanks for pointing it out, Robert. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Luke. All right, another one for you, Chris, just on our Tauck tours, more specifically, level of activity for this tour in general, and also for other tours that you may have run. You know, what are the youngest people that we've had there with you? And if you're on the older end, what's the level of activity one might expect as they're traveling with us down there?
All right, so, you know, I run both the Kenya-Tanzania program, which tends to be a little bit of an older crowd. And then I also run the Bridges program, bridging generations together, right? So you have grandparents, parents, as well as children. Now, when we're talking about the youngest, I've had kids, I would say 7, 8 years old is pretty much the youngest, because part of that program is taking the balloon, and the youngest age that's allowed to take the balloon is 7. So you probably want to be at least 7. I would say 11, 12 is a really great age. There's that wondrous spirit that age has. So for the kids, it's for the grandparents or the parents to come with the kids and to see that look in the children's eyes when they see the things that they've only seen in cartoons or movies happening right in front of them. It's just spectacular. It's such a great experience to share if you have that opportunity. So I highly recommend the Bridges programs, and they tend to be a little bit more active, but you have the choice of whether you want to participate in the activities or not. So a lot of times I'll have, you know, grandparents bring their granddaughter because she just graduated from one level of school, and this is her gift for her. And they get to share that experience with her. And when she's with the group of other kids on a Bridges tour, throwing spears, shooting a bow and arrow, doing a short hike of Kilimanjaro, they can stay back, right? They don't have to go and shoot bows and arrows. They don't have to do a hike through the park. They can kind of stay back, you know, stay in the slower group of hikers when the other people go on for that one short day hike of the mountain. So really, it's as active as you want it to be, but you do need to be in a reasonable amount of shape. So there's not a lot of handicap access in East Africa. And you're talking about rocky, sandy trails leading to tents and to rooms. So you need to be able to, I would say, you know, to walk around the track, you know, up at the high school, right around the football field, walk around the track once or twice to be able to handle it, because you're climbing in and out of vehicles. You know, you're walking through sandy, rocky pathways. I always say to everybody, there's really no level ground on this whole trip. So you need to be in a reasonable amount of shape, but you do not need to be a mountain climber. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, Chris, from top to bottom there. I think that's very informative for people. So thank you for that. Just a couple more. I know there was a bunch, but there's a lot of questions on when we guys were speaking to the animals. A lot of guests who had been to Africa before commented that while the big five is fantastic, the birds are really what made the trip for them. So I wonder if you could speak to bird activity and what we might see there as we're traveling.
Oh, I mean, if you look through Kenya and Tanzania, you're talking about over 900 different species of birds. And you're talking about some of the most colorful birds on the planet. One of the great things about our local guides here is they are essentially a bird book. And if you've ever looked at some of these East African bird books, there's over 1,000 pages in them, right? And these guides that we hire at Tauck and that we work with at Tauck are so fabulous at not only spotting those birds, but about telling you where they may be and what they are doing, and just putting the whole idea of why they're there and the whole reasoning behind all of the birds that you do spot on these safaris. So birding is fantastic. And you could have a book of 500 different birds, and after a safari have checked off 150 of them.
That's great. Yeah. I can imagine. I can imagine it. And just like you know, the big five, you know, not guaranteed to see everything that you might want to, but you'll see something. That's for sure.
You're not kidding.
Chris, really quick, and sorry, Luke, I haven't gone to you, but Chris, really quick, just in terms of our trips, your Kenya and Tanzania classic safari compared to, say, an South Africa safari or other trips that you know of that we run in Africa, can you just give a quick general synopsis of the differences one might expect?
Yeah, I would say up here in East Africa, population numbers of the animals, you're going to see a lot more animals, more wildebeest, more zebra, more giraffes. The only animals that I would say that we see more of maybe in Botswana are the elephants. Botswana is the stronghold for elephants on the African continent. They tend to have the most in the Chobe, Okavango ecosystem. You know, when I first went there, one of the guides said, "Oh, there's about 60,000 in this greater area." And I said, "Are you adding a zero? Because here in East Africa, you really don't have as many elephants in some of the areas." And there's different reasons for that. The ecosystems and poaching has done a number on some of the population numbers of elephants. But differences, you know, more elephants, I would say, in Botswana than you'll see up in this area, but there's no lack of elephants up here. Population numbers in East Africa, huge population numbers. Temperatures, more comfortable temperatures in East Africa. Southern Africa, it's a little bit more luxurious, I think, in Botswana especially. I mean, if you just look at the price of a Botswanan safari, it is in some cases a third more than an East African safari. And that's because the development in those areas, like in the Delta and the Chobe, has been specific. The Botswanan government wanted to limit the supply and up the demand. Therefore, with a limited supply, they really developed high-end luxury safari camps. And with that comes more of a luxurious experience. You don't see the big, huge numbers of animals that you'll see, but you do see numbers. And when you're talking about a landscape, the Okavango Delta and the Chobe river system, when you're looking down there, you're talking about more of that swamp kind of land area. So you get your big five, but you also have a ton of different bird species down there as well, and different types of safari activities as opposed to our game drives and our ballooning, which we do in East Africa. In Southern Africa, we'll do any number of boating activities. The Makoro, which is a traditional Botswana, like a canoe, and you'll do that through the Delta. We do motorboat safaris down there as well. We have like a night sundowner cruise on the Delta as well. We do a helicopter ride over the Okavango Delta. So there's those differences, and then the weather's different, right? In Botswana, Zambia tends to get a little bit hotter. You get a real feel for that Africa hot at certain times of year. You know, when you get into September, October, it gets really hot. Some people like that, some people don't. In East Africa, you never really get that hot unless you go to the coast in Kenya and Tanzania. So temperature, the numbers of animals, the type of lodging, these are all small little differences, but one complements the other. I think that if you want to get the complete African experience, you start off with an East African safari, seeing the migration, seeing the big herds, doing the balloon over the Mara, getting to see some of these huge lion prides in the Serengeti. And then maybe a year or two later, you go down, take the trip to go see Victoria Falls, go to Botswana, see the big, massive amounts of elephants. They also have lions. See leopards more often in Botswana than we do in East Africa for some reason. And on some of the private concessions that we use in Southern Africa, you can do some off-roading. You can do some night game safaris with spotlights. So two very different animals, no pun intended, right?
Well, the pun worked. I like I like it, Chris. Okay, I know we're going a little over, but I have two more important questions I want to get to. One guest just asked, which is really important, I think, just the level of safety one can expect while being down there. Just, you know, in and off the jeeps, you know, doing those night game drives with the guides, all that sort of thing. Can you just speak to just the level of comfort and safety that our guests will experience down there with us?
Yeah, you know, you're talking about professional guides. In most cases, been doing this for quite a long time. We've been trained properly. With that being said, they will coach you, as well as us tour leaders, coach you as to the protocol when it comes to the wildlife. And if you follow the protocol and don't go outside of what you've been taught, it's 100% safe or 99% safe, right? As long as you don't go outside of the box. Oh, he said not to get out of the car, but I really just want to jump out and get a closer picture. Well, then you're asking for trouble, right? Because then you're going to shock these animals, scare these animals. And that's when it can be dangerous. But if you follow the instructions of the local guides, it is very safe, very safe. I'm still here and I've been doing it for 16 years.
Wow, you're still talking about it, so that's good. All right, just to finish up, and I want to go, Luke, I'll go to you first because you were just there a month ago, and I don't want to not acknowledge obviously the elephant in the room again.
Nice one.
The current just situation, you know, that we're all living through in this world. Just from your experience being down there, Luke, your level of comfort and safety, just from a COVID point of view, and what was life like for you as you were touring around?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, Dustin. I was actually really pleasantly impressed and surprised at how well Kenya are managing the guest experience in this way. So firstly, to go to Kenya, you'll need to get a negative COVID test within 96 hours of arriving in the destination before you can even board the flight there. When you do get that negative COVID test, you upload it to a QR app, and then you're basically sort of tracked around Kenya. So they monitor you as you move around every flight you take. When you get to Kenya, all the camp staff are wearing masks. Everyone on the transfer vehicles is wearing masks. All the camps are sanitized and clearly labeled how they've been sanitized, what their sanitization programs are. So you're confident. You know, when I was transferring from one camp to another by road, there was actually a police stop to make sure everyone was wearing their mask. It wasn't aggressive or anything, but it was just a reminder to everyone. So the Kenyans are taking it really, really seriously. And, you know, obviously guest safety and visitor safety is their major concern, which is why they've managed to stay open. Kenya's been open for much of this pandemic to visitors. And the impact on Kenya, they do have cases. They haven't had a lot of deaths in terms of their own population. It is a younger population, so there's quite a few reported deaths in Kenya. And yeah, they're taking it very seriously, and the tourism industry as a whole has very rigid protocols in place. And if you go to the Magical Kenya website, there's a whole section on what Kenya has done regarding COVID safety there.
Great, thanks, Luke. And I'll throw it over to you too, Chris, because you're down there now. You've been there for the past week, getting ready for the tour. Just from your perspective, a month later, you know, what is it like, and just from your eyes on the ground?
Well, it's not as busy as it normally would be in July, right? We're July, August. We're in the middle of high season here, dry season, high season, and it's usually a lot more tourists around. They have protocols in place at everywhere you're going to travel. You're tested to get into the country. You have to have proof of a negative test. You know, once you get in, they test you upon arrival. Going to Kenya, like Luke was just saying, they're going to test you there as well. People, you know, like for our tours, one of my guests asked me today, you know, when we're in the cars, what's the protocol with the mask? We're all going to be wearing masks when we're in the enclosed spaces together. You know, everybody's, in most cases, been vaccinated if they were able to do that. So it feels really safe. You know, so just looking forward to getting back out there. But you know, I mean, just even in the hotel rooms here at the Malia, they have tape on the doors. You go inside, everything has been cleaned off. The remote control for the TV was in a plastic bag with a note on it that says been cleaned, you know, because that's something people have been touching. You know, bring your hand sanitizer, bring your mask, and bring your adventurous spirit, and we're ready to go.
To that end, Chris, last question. Can you please make everyone online here jealous? You're down there, you're ready to lead a tour. Just tell us about your level of excitement, the guests you've already met, their level of excitement, and just please make us all jealous. Get back out there.
Well, we had our first briefing. Today is arrival day. So I had my 7-8 guests in the room. We set up the map and we started talking about it. And I have 2 sisters that are traveling together and they're rubbing their hands together going, oh my God, I can't wait. I can't wait. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I can't wait. I can't wait. You know, and it's just an exciting thing to be out here and getting back into the flow of things. All of the guests that I have a young family. I have a mother and father with their 20-year-old kids who are coming along. I have 2 sisters celebrating a birthday, and they're in their 60s. You know, and I have a couple who's on their 4th African safari in the last 11 years. And all of us are following the protocols that have been put in place, and all of us are just chomping at the bit to get back out there and to see what the wildlife's been up to.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I know we went over a little bit. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Luke, for running the show here. We really appreciate it, and your time for joining. Again, this slide has been up the whole time, so hopefully you've all taken a picture of it or marked down the links that you wanted to save. But thank you all, and please enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be. And Chris, good luck out there. I can't wait to hear how the tour went after you're done.
Yeah, check out the Instagram. I'll put some stuff on there. #Tauck, you know, #KT Safari, stuff like that. If you want to see some photos as we go along, check it out. See us out there. #Tauck.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dustin. Good fun, man. Peace.
Bye, all.